Alright guys, before we get into this, I'm gonna give you a spicy warning. This deck is more spicy than it is competitive. It's a lot of fun to play. I recommend it just for a good time, and I'm sure it can be somewhat competitive, but this deck is it's more for fun to just kind of push limits and see what we can do. I definitely got some pretty solid wins with it, but I don't know if this is kind of tournament worthy, but it's definitely good enough to screw around with a ladder, get some wins, and have a good time. Let's just jump into it. The goal here is to play Arcanum Hourglass, put power into your play from your Void, or Katra. And she also puts powers into play from the Void, and she has some other cool abilities, so when you're doing this, she'll get massive, which is nice. Sometimes she's the only one in play, so she just plays one land, but other times you've got some other guys in play, and she'll draw you 2 or 3 or 4 lands. To that effect, we need ways to put lands in the Void, or power in the Void. So to do that, we are playing 4 Torgov's Trading Post, 2 Azurite Prixis, and 4 Honor of Claws. Torgov's Trading Post, at the end of your turn, discard a random power card from your deck. Fortunately, the first ability you typically use is Call the Ancients, and it puts a bunch of 6/6 Titans with Aegis and Endurance, and importantly, those Titans are 2/2 or 2 powers, or they cost 2, so you can still continue to draw cards with Even Hand Golem afterwards. Getting Torgov's great, but you don't even really need to do it. You just want this to live for a few turns and put lands into the Void. Don't worry too much about protecting it. If you start to get to the point where you can maybe get a Torgov, then sure, go all in on protecting it, but our goal is to slam this down, protect it for maybe 1 or 2 turns, put some lands in the Void, and just ramp into some of our bigger stuff. Azurite Pixis. This card's kind of... It's always been borderline. It might as well not even have the second half of the card. I kind of wished they would word this so that if it's in your opening hand, give it Destiny or something so that it just slams into play. But whatever. It is what it is, but what it does provide is as your minions are dying, you're able to flip cards from the top of your deck into your Void. You have to be very careful with this card. Never play more than 1. Just don't do it. You'll kill yourself, or you'll make it so much harder. Wasteland Broker, we're playing Wasteland Broker in this deck, and what this will do is put cards from your market into the top 20 cards. You have to be careful because you might end up just discarding all of them. So it's kind of fortunate that it puts so many in, but you have to realize the cost that comes along with playing Prixis, and it is definitely very real. And the last card that discards is Honor of Claws. This lets us draw 3, discard a card, and then good targets for this are any land, Ephemeral Wisp, or Fel Rock. Once you've got the power. It takes a bit to get to the point where you have the power to do him, but once you do, you'll actually sometimes randomly flip him into play with Azurite Prixis, which is hilarious. And you can also use Honor of Claws, so it's kind of cool. And the last way we have of getting lands in the Void is we have 4 Fine Vows. I tried messing around with playing more of like some of the off-color vows, but I found that just power consistency was too important, and you lose a lot of that. Also, this only ever surges for 1, whereas some other cards will always surge for 2. So that's something to keep in mind, and that's why we're only playing 4 here. But if you're maybe playing a dedicated time shadow list or version of this list, I could see an argument for playing, more vows. But that's kind of the main theme of the deck. Let's just run through the cards, talk about what's going on here. We've got Desert Alchemist. This is just a staple in time lists. It blocks, it kills, it fixes your power, it draws you cards if you're flooding, does everything you want it to do, and it's a minion. Ephemeral Wisp, play a power, put them from your play from your Void. This will keep you alive for a long time. We can also just flip it into our Void and just randomly yeet it into play, and it's an excellent Devour target. if they're not playing any sort of evasion, then you can just block stuff all day with this, and they'll have to like waste a powerful silence or something on it just to be able to get damage through. Even-handed Golem, this guy draws 2, and that's pretty good. So that's why we're playing him. Gentle Grazer can kind of yeet him into play and let you draw more, but just the more card draw you have, just it helps a lot, because we need to draw so many power and then put some in our void, and we have a lot going on. So being able to just refill our hand and be able to make the correct choice at any given time helps a lot with Golem. Gentle Grazer, sometimes you get lucky, but all of our 2-drops are pretty solid. Putting Wisp into play, you get that perma blocker. Put Even-handed Golem into play. Put Desert Alchemist into play. Hourglass, or even Torgov's Trading Post. The card you kind of don't really want to hit with this is Prixis. But if it happens, it happens. It's not that big of a deal. But just keep in mind that sometimes that Prixis is kind of the low roll for this. And that's just kind of the price we pay to play Prixis. I kind of went over Katra. Wasteland Broker. Let's take a look at our market here. We can put Tome of Horrors in, Lumen Reclaimer, Pride Leader, Timepiece, or Vara. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I usually only put Timepiece in. I found that this is my favorite win con to be slamming in. We're putting so many lands into play with Hourglass and Katra that by the time you start drawing this, you're going to be able to spellcraft it, and that should end most games. Vara is another good option. And if they're playing a relic-heavy deck, I can see Pride Leader. But for the most part, I think I've grabbed Timepiece most of the time. The market can definitely be changed. I'm not sure what else I would play in it. I think the market could literally just be 1 out of 5 Timepiece, and it would also be just as good. So that's what we have going on here. Bellrock, kind of mentioned him, but 3 Primal, 3 Shadow, play him from your Void if he's discarded. And he's also just fine as a 6-drop. 5/2 is a pretty good cost. It will die to Blazing Salvo, but half the time you're getting this for free. And when it slams down, you're actually helping them discard. I also can kind of see a world where even though we're only playing Fellrock and Tome of Horrors, if you put a whole bunch of Tome of Horrors into the top of your deck, there's a good chance you can actually mill your opponent out. And Tome also lets you draw cards, so that's some synergy there. Azindel, he's just the big spaghetti monster in this deck. Being able to stabilize the board in a rough spot, put 3 dudes into play that typically trade well, and Azindel usually trumps a lot of stuff too. So you've got the 2 deadly guys to block, and then Azindel will save you. And then other situations, if you're even or even ahead on board, Azindel will just close the game. Once you start ripping cards out of your opponent's deck, it's going to be really hard for them to come back. If they're an aggro deck, well, you already survived long enough to play Azindel, so you probably just win. If they're a mid-range deck, you start taking their threats and removal, they're going to be in trouble. And against combo and control, you can sometimes pick apart some key like removal or pieces they need, and then they can't win anymore. But yeah, here's the deck. Pretty straightforward, but it's silly. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of fun to play, though. I highly recommend it just for the fun aspect. Let's look at the power, because we've got some weird things going on here. We're playing a few of each of the symbols. We just have such a heavy cost where we need to have 4 black or 4 shadow. We need 3 primal, and we need 3 time. So we need to hit 3 minimum of each, and then 4 for shadow. So that's why you see these symbols, because it helps a ton. We're playing 2 shadow sigils and 1 primal sigil. These are for the vow to fetch, basically. We're hoping that by the time we draw like the extra vow, or if we drew one of our powers early, that by that point hopefully we already have our influence needs and it's not too big of a deal. And then it's just a mix. The Silixes are actually the best options here. Reason being, because we're playing some of these shadow symbols and time symbols, that lets these enter untapped. And then later on in the game, when you're playing Katra or Hourglass, these will actually flip back into play. and give you the treasure, which is huge. So it gives you a lot of velocity and late game stuff going on. And then the next best land for us are banners. You could potentially play crests if you wanted to, but we just kind of want some of our power to enter untapped because a lot of it won't. So that's why that's going on here. Yeah, check this out. Here's some games. I somehow managed to get wins with this. I know I'm surprised too, but had a lot of fun playing this and making it, so check it out.
Only the best for you.
Stand back.
Welcome, welcome.
I suppose our stuff can't leave the void. We're not playing this.
Others flinch, I stare.
In Ikaria's name, you will be judged.
Too soon. Others flinch, I stare.
And now we die.
Victory justifies all.
In Ikaria's name, you will be judged.
Wow.
Too soon.
Bullseye!
I suppose that's why you don't play Hourglass before you have stuff in your void. Learned. Ouch.
Stand back.
I totally misread this card. Didn't realize the golems were 2 drops. That's good to know, though. Lame.
Where others flinch, I stare.
Not too bad. That lets us cast this on 2 if we want to.
Touch of shadow.
And I think we probably will.
The right blade for the job.
Rude. Well, don't mind if I do.
Stand back.
The ritual is complete.
I've got the power. Boom.
It's all mine.
Let us make bargain, huh?
Hear my power!
Where others flinch, I stare.
GG's. Seems like the only deck we ever beat is fine. Your match? Question mark? Maybe just a mono shadow deck that just really hates drawing lands in the late game. I don't fault him for it.
the strong shall inherit.
I just let that happen. I could trade with the So. Wouldn't be bad. But we'd like to... Oh, I guess it didn't matter. We'd like to play Vara next turn and get as many lands as we can.
The ritual is complete.
Hunt them down. Doom comes.
One land in there now. I think we'll start with this.
Where others flinch, I stare.
Choose a path.
Probably timepiece, right? Oh man. I didn't think of that, but we might be one of the few decks that can reliably spellcraft timepiece. That's hilarious.
Brendan tear.
I don't think we can afford to wait though. These come into play untapped? No.
Your time is up.
Hunt them down. Doom comes. Brendan tear.
So there's 2 lands in our void. We can play her now.
The ritual is complete.
I don't really want him to make us discard, so we'll just wait. We'll play this guy so we can have an Aegis, and we'll draw a card. Slightly out of order, but whatever.
We call the shadows to the light.
Rend and tear. Rend and tear.
Your time is up.
Hear my power.
We're not going to play second Pixis. We pretty much have this game locked down, and that'd be the easiest way to feed it away right now.
Rend and tear. Rend and tear.
The ritual is complete.
Well, that made him leave. Looks good to me. Are we playing Blizzard again? See how this goes when they know what we're up to.
Choose a path.
Timepiece was pretty fun last time.
Little brothers, let us feast.
That's a pretty good hit. Actually, it's excellent. Well,
The right blade for the job.
extremely excellent, but good enough.
Stand back.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
The ritual is complete.
The right blade for the job.
Probably about to eat a, what's it called? Royal Decree? Oh, maybe not.
Where others flinch, I stare.
Hear my power.
Hear my power.
Hunt them down. Doom comes.
Your time is up.
Did we miss lethal there? Yes. Did we do it so we can spellcraft Pale Rider's timepiece on our turn? Also, yes.
Little brothers, let us feast.
That noise is so satisfying. Post game.
send a message.
The battlefield awaits!
A single shot is all it takes.
Wisp power.
Stand back.
Oh shit.
Flinch. I stare.
Oof. Well, I don't think we're gonna get a game better than that.